Hey, you there, stop!
Cluck cluck, thief!
After him, Henny!
The thief slowly reached forward, getting ready to take the very first egg. Drop the egg inside without making a sound, and his eyes grew wide when he saw Henny's pretty eggs. On a bright and busy morning, Old MacDonald's farm was full of happy sounds, soft wind, and little feet moving everywhere. By the shining pond, the ducks were quacking happily, while the piglets rolled and played in the soft, muddy ground. On the wooden fence, the proud rooster stood tall, and inside the coop, Henny watched over her eggs with love. In calm child voice, but outside the farm fence, a sneaky little thief was hiding behind a bush and watching the busy farm very closely. He smiled a silly little smile, held his big sack tightly, and started thinking about Henny's eggs. A soft little voice seemed to say, "Oh no, taking eggs is not kind, and it is not the right thing to do." But the silly thief did not listen, and with one quick jump, he popped over the wooden farm fence. Down he came into a fluffy pile of hay, and soft yellow straw puffed up all around him. The thief quickly sat up, brushed the straw away, and looked around to see if anyone had noticed him.
Not far away, the goat blinked at him once, but then calmly went back to chewing by the cart.
The silly thief smiled again, picked up his heavy sack, and started tiptoeing quietly across the sunny farmyard. He passed the duck pond very carefully, trying not to make even one splash or one silly sound. But suddenly his boot slipped a little, and he wobbled beside the pond with round, worried eyes. He stopped just in time, hugged the sack tightly, and looked around to check if anybody had seen him.
When nobody shouted, the silly thief smiled softly and kept moving toward Henny's cozy little chicken coop. Near the coop, Henny sat so proudly on her eggs, while the warm sunlight touched the straw all around her. Outside, the thief slowed down, bent a little lower, and crept closer and closer to the coop door. He peeked through the little coop window, and his eyes grew wide when he saw Henny's pretty eggs. The silly thief smiled a tiny smile, held his sack tighter, and reached for the wooden coop handle. Very slowly, the little door began to open, and the quiet coop filled with one soft, creaky sound. Inside the cozy coop, the thief stepped in very quietly, while Henny still sat softly on her warm little nest. He bent down a little, looked at the eggs, and smiled as if his silly plan was almost working. But then his heavy sack brushed the wooden wall, and a tiny bump sounded inside the quiet coop. Oh no!
Henny lifted her head just a little, and the silly thief stood still like a statue in the straw. When Henny settled again, the thief slowly reached forward, getting ready to take the very first egg. Very gently, the silly thief picked up one little egg and held it carefully in his shaking hand. He opened his big sack a little and slowly dropped the egg inside without making a sound. Then he reached again, smiling softly,
because now his silly plan felt easier and easier. But a soft feather floated down and landed right under the silly thief's twitchy little nose.
His nose began to wiggle, his eyes squeezed tight, and suddenly a big sneeze was ready to come.
He tried to hold it in very hard, but then the silly sneeze burst out inside the quiet coop.
Henny opened her eyes wide, lifted her head fast, and looked right at the sneaky thief.
Oh no, the hen's awake! The thief froze in place, holding the sack tight, while Henny stared at him with shocked little eyes.
He froze and stayed tight, while Henny stared at him shocked little eyes.
Then Henny looked down at her nest and saw that one of her pretty eggs was gone. Henny jumped up and clucked so loudly that the whole peaceful farm began to wake at once. The silly thief gasped, grabbed his sack quickly, and turned to run out of the coop as fast as he could. Henny flapped after him and clucked so loudly that the ducks, piglets, and rooster all looked up at once. Out into the bright farmyard he ran, hugging the sack close while Henny chased him with brave little steps.
The rooster crowed, the ducks began quacking, and the piglets bounced around as the whole yard filled with noise. What's all that racket? Gotta get out of here!
Then Old MacDonald turned around, saw the running thief, and knew right away that something was very wrong.
Hey, you there, stop!
Cluck, cluck, thief!
After him, Henny!
Old MacDonald took a quick step forward, while the silly thief hurried past the pond with the sack bouncing hard. He ran so fast that his sack swung wildly, and one little egg inside gave a tiny shaky bump. The silly thief looked back in worry, and his feet rushed straight toward the old pumpkin patch. Oh no, they're after me! To the pumpkins! He jumped over one pumpkin, slipped past another, and nearly tumbled on the twisty green vines below. At last he stumbled out of the pumpkins, breathing hard, while the farm behind him grew louder and louder. Then the silly thief ran toward the old hayfield, still hugging the sack tightly as his feet began to wobble. But he forgot about the old wheelbarrow in the path, and his boot caught on it with a bump.
Up flew the sack, up flew his arms, and the silly thief tumbled right into the soft yellow hay.
The sack dropped softly into the hay, and inside it, Henny's little eggs stayed safe and still. When the silly thief sat up again, Old MacDonald and Henny were already coming closer across the bright farm. The silly thief looked around with worried eyes, but now there was no quiet path left for him to run away.
Old MacDonald stopped in front of him, and Henny looked straight at the sack with brave little eyes.
That sack doesn't belong to you.
That's right, Henny. We'll handle this.
The silly thief lowered his head slowly, because he knew the eggs were never his to take.
Very carefully, Old MacDonald opened the sack, and Henny's pretty eggs were all safe inside.
My eggs, they're safe.
They're all safe, Henny.
Henny smiled with joy, because every little egg was coming home to her warm and cozy nest again. Back at the coop, Old MacDonald placed the eggs gently into Henny's nest, one by one with great care.
Henny settled over them again, holding them close, safe, warm, and happy under her soft feathers.
The silly thief stood quietly nearby, looking sorry, because now he understood that stealing only brings trouble.
Old MacDonald spoke kindly. Next time, ask for help with a good heart, and never take what is not yours.
And from that happy day on, everyone remembered that kind hearts ask nicely, and safe homes are filled with love.